Castlevania is an anime-inspired cursetoon set in the world of Castlevania. Who would have thought? It's its own story apart from the games, but obviously inspired by them. One question remains though, did it start well? Well, our story begins in Wallachia in the year 1455. The first sight we see are bodies with stakes shoved up the bum going through their mouth. Wood really shouldn't be up there. A lesson your mom knows all too well. This sight, the mass display of death, shows the state of the setting, a foreboding message of what's to come, leaving us with the question of what could have led to this. We then see a woman stab a bat before walking into what appears to be a giant castle. If you have any passing knowledge on it whatsoever, it's most definitely going to be Dracula's castle. She says her name is Lisa, that she wants to be a doctor, and that she isn't a witch and believes in science. Dracula reveals himself and asks Lisa what she has to trade for such knowledge, leading to Lisa saying,
"Perhaps I could help you relearn some manners. I've crossed the threshold of your home and you haven't offered me a drink or even to take my coat."
Dracula's face speaks volumes. He's surprised and yet it softens. He then threatens to drink her blood, trying to get her to confess to fear by having superstitious protection like crucifix or garlic. He's sizing her up, trying to get a rise out of her so a human can disappoint him yet again. She instead admits to eating garlic for lunch, taken aback by the idea that it could have been rude, but standing steadfast in the fact that she's here to learn how to heal. She doesn't care for superstition and is genuine to a degree that Dracula seems to admire. Chemistry is starting to form here. She's literally portrayed as his better half, trying to show him the half of himself that she sees.
I've known you 2 minutes, and you offer for me to walk the earth.
This gets foreshadowed further with,
Why should I do that?
To make the world better. Start with me, and I'll start with you.
they are a sweet couple. I'm actually rooting for them, weirdly enough. We fast forward to Targoviste, Wallachia in the year 1475, 20 years after their first encounter. There's a woman burning at the stake. It looks a lot like Lisa. This feels fast. They didn't put much time into letting us get attached to her before they decide to kill her off. I feel kind of, pardon the pun, burned by this revelation. A priest of some sort, the head of the witch trial, says that he saw satanic things in her home, that she claimed it was science, but it was given to her by Satan and she just doesn't see it. What a real solid argument here. Surprised this isn't the American justice system. What aggravates me the most about this scene is the fact that there's a crowd of onlookers, men, women, and children, an audience of sheep that never speak up. It could be showing that the fear is sown deep, that these people are being fear-mongered by the church, or that this happens so often that they've grown numb to it or even have decided to support it. Like it's just another Saturday to them. Lisa yells, "Don't hurt them, they don't understand," getting this response from the priest.
I believe she's exhorting Satan not to take revenge on us, which I suppose is almost commendable.
This shows a few things. First, it represents the confirmation bias of the people burning her alive. They only see what supports their argument. The priest sees this as her calling out to Satan, when if he was open to seeing good, could have seen it as her calling out to God as well. Second, it's giving us a hint of symbolism we may see throughout the series. Lisa being strung up and practically crucified, while saying a version of what Jesus said when he was on the cross. For Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do," and she said,
Don't hurt them! They don't understand!
A nice touch. Third, it could be foreshadowing how Dracula reacts to the death of Lisa. Whether he hears her or not, it shows that he will react and he's powerful enough that she fears for the life of her killers. It also shows her character, that even as she dies, she is caring for the well-being of others. It truly is
Commendable?
no almosts about it. The religious symbolism continues with an even more close quote.
I know it's not your fault, but if you can hear, they don't know what they're doing!
As well as gives us a glimpse of how much she cares for Dracula himself.
Be better than them! please!
We then get a banger of an intro that I'll go over in another video if there's any demand for it, before seeing Dracula as he arrives home. Given the ring on his hand, he and Lisa got married, which makes the fate we just foresaw even more heartbreaking. Maybe he'll save her, I guess we'll see. As he continues walking, we see broken pieces of fence and blood on the ground, and when he arrives at his house, shock and horror flood his face. It's burnt to the ground, still smoking, as a neighbor approaches him to inform him of the situation and leave flowers at the scene of the crime. The humanity within this scene, the humanity portrayed within Dracula, it all breaks my heart.
Oh no, sir. She'll be dead by now.
The neighbor talking about how disgusted she feels, the clenching of his fists, the coat covering Dracula's face only showing darkness within his eyes, the tears of blood that pour out as the smoke continues to pour, and him dropping his head as if he's admitting defeat, signifying the death of the man he was becoming and the return of who he once was.
She said to me, "If you would love me as a man, then live as a man. Travel as a man."
She said you were traveling.
I was. The way men do.
The way he begins this is softly, solemnly, as if he's reliving the moment as he did when it happened. But after the interjection from the old woman, his tone shifts to a growl, blaming him living like humans for why they were able to do the damage they've done.
I do this last kindness in her name. She who loved you humans and cared for your ills. Take your family and leave Wallachia tonight.
He has now separated himself from the humans, no longer even vaguely associating his actions with them, and instead even giving his late wife the credit for what he calls an act of kindness. He advises the woman and her family to leave, before bursting into flames, causing the woman to pull out a cross. This is a good callback from the beginning of the episode, the superstitions, and another way to justify his disdain for humanity, and give more reason for the woman's inaction as his wife is burned alive. The last thing we see is the woman running away, hopefully out of the city, heeding the warning of the man who was just before, as the flowers burn away behind her, representing the beauty he was able to see as he traveled the world, burning away as it's left in the past. We cut back to cheering as her body turns to ash. Not everyone though, like this man for example, or even this one. It shows that they all deserve Dracula's promised destruction, some for the joy they felt by the death of his wife, and others for the inaction they took either way. Given these are some of the only people that look uncomfortable by what they just witnessed, it makes sense they wouldn't speak up out of fear, but her death is on their hands as well for refusing to even try. The priest and the mayor speak, where we hear that the priest truly believes he's in the right, burning out evil to make Wallachia God's own country. This is a good example of weaponizing religion, shifting it to fit what you believe it should be, and being narcissistic enough to assume what God would want by self-righteously making yourself a hero, cleansing the land of what you believe to be evil. We've seen this happen to justify slavery, the Salem witch trials, and other awful things throughout history. It's a very real thing. Radicalism mixed with either fear or insanity, or awful people just trying to find excuses to do awful things. The Bible may be up for interpretation at times, but there's many verses that speak against interpretation such as this one. But people such as this choose to believe only what supports their narrative, picking and choosing based upon it. Dracula interrupts, being immediately mistaken for Satan by the man who sees the devil in everything. The priest denies Dracula's existence, justifying Lisa's death as,
You are not real. You are a fiction that justified the practice of black magic.
and truly channels a performance that Jeffrey Combs would be proud of. Dracula gives the people of Wallachia 1 year to leave everything, make their peace with God, and get rid of every mark they ever made on the land. As fire rains down onto the city, and the priest seems to heed his warning and take it to heart. Will he learn from it, or will he buckle down? Is the defeated look due to him killing an innocent woman, or due to him being powerless against Dracula? It leaves us thus questioning the fate of the town in that moment, as well as whether he has redemption coming or if he'll dive further into his own insanity. We then cut to Dracula after he makes his promise. He rages out of grief and exclaims that he will use this year to summon an army before...
No!
A man breaks in with balls the size of cantaloupes, announcing his presence with a simple yet powerful word. It shows that whoever he is holds some power towards Dracula, given that Dracula doesn't kill him on the spot, and instead explains himself in a grief-stricken rage.
What do you mean, no? That woman was the only reason on Earth for me to tolerate human life!
Dracula buckles down though, dehumanizing humans to something to be tolerated instead of something to be researched and learned about. It shows through a powerful voice acting performance that he has completely rejected what Lisa wanted for him now. Grief is spiraling with him along with it. The Interrupter, however, does make a good point.
If you loose an army of the night on Wallachia, you cannot undo it. And many thousands of people just as innocent as her will suffer and die.
As Dracula's face trembles with anger, he says that there are no innocent people, not anymore. The phrasing "not anymore" shows that he believes there still once was, possibly both a reference to ones he met on his travels and or his now late wife. His next point is another that needs to be heard with the emotion as reference.
Any one of them could have stood up and said, no, we won't behave like animals anymore.
This compounds the fact that inaction is action in and of itself, and that all it takes is one person to truly make a difference. If someone spoke up, even if it fell on deaf ears, it would have been able to buy Dracula enough time to save her, given how he was only moments too late. The Interrupter then says, "I grieve with you, but I will not let you commit genocide," prompting an attack from Dracula. This is important due to the unknown identity of whoever interrupted. Him saying that he grieves with him, showing that they were close in some regard to Lisa and possibly each other as well. It cements that he seems to harbor similar thoughts to Lisa regarding humans as well, calling them innocent when he first arrives, and standing up for them now. Dracula attacking him though is another example of the man losing himself, given that regardless of the possible bond, he didn't even hesitate to strike without warning. We skip to a year later, Targoviste, Wallachia, 1476. Choirs are singing, a celebration is occurring. The town didn't heed the warning of a man within a fire. Definitely not learning from Moses and the burning bush. Showing that their knowledge on the Bible is still pick and choose on what they choose to believe and how they choose to view things. Let's see if Dracula keeps his promise or if he was the one that lost the fight with the Interrupter. The Archbishop gets carried out, showing no emotion whatsoever, with nails that haven't been cut in a long time. Given his weight to the fact that he obviously hasn't been caring for himself, it makes his next speech, no matter how well written, feel just as hollow as the expressions of the man that it's coming from. We also see some of the same audience members that cheered for the death of Lisa, standing before us, ready to face judgment for that. Once the bishop gets to a certain point, he calls out the promise as a lie from the devil, making the same mistake as the priest from the execution. His lie leads to a foreboding shift in the weather, in the tone of the scene, as he gets immediately proven wrong as blood and bodies rain from the once sunny sky, flooding the streets. It's literally raining the tears of Dracula. Speak of the devil, see what I did there? He makes his appearance, calling the town out for its insolent stupidity before sealing their fate. His castle rises from the ground as windows fly open, releasing creatures of the night upon the world. The streets getting flooded with blood, gore, and death as men, women, and children get slaughtered like flies. Dracula tells the monsters to kill everyone in the city and then move on to the next until all of Wallachia is nothing but a graveyard. Switching to an unknown place and time, we see a man talking about how he hit a feller with a shovel for banging his goat. Gross. It's emphasized in details that I didn't need to know. Then when another man arrives, gets brought up that sheep aren't safe either. This emphasizes the fall of the world well. Sins are becoming commonplace even brutally disgusting ones such as this. The bartender asks if anyone wants another cup of ale, getting a strong yes from the man in the back that he never sees come into fruition due to the interruption from a newcomer. This could be setting up a reason for him to approach the bar and the people sitting at it without it feeling forced. The new guy says that a horde was seen headed this way, but that it could miss them if they're lucky. It will undoubtedly hit another place though, Gresha, to where the Shovel Knight steps in to say good riddance. He starts bringing up the great houses, Vlad Dracula, ending by saying,
The Belmonts? We should have killed all the Belmonts.
Getting a reaction of fear from the man in the back, foreshadowing that he is either a Belmont or has close ties or association with the Belmonts, and that it'll cause a conflict between him and the men at the bar whenever he inevitably approaches for that refill. The episode ends with that foreboding reaction, a cliffhanger with a common question of what will happen next, leaving you to see if the confrontation actually happens, if a brawl takes place, or if he's smart and sneaks out the back. It's a good way to establish the character of the man in the back of the bar. What does he prioritize? How does he handle situations that could be dangerous? And what does that mean in regards to his nature? Episode 2 begins right where we left off, with a drunken speech about the great houses, how their war always drags them into it, and how they are just hardworking people that don't deserve such a fate. They came from crap, they're born in crap, and now they live in crap. His speech has surprising depth under the surface, a common example of how the rich get richer, the powerful gain more power, and the struggle between those powers cause the everyman to lose money and lose power themselves. I have to put this in there because it's pretty funny, but last episode this joke was brought up.
Look, we might have had the same father, but you came out of my arm. Don't make me get my shovel.
And it pays off pretty well here.
Where'd you come from?
Well, out of your hand, according to you.
It made me laugh far more than it should have. Totally unrelated, carrying on. The man in the back approaches the bar as was foreshadowed earlier, and asks,
Can I get my ale? It's just that I think I'm sobering up.
The bartender says he needs to see some coin first, showing that he's been pretty generous up to this point, and has let the man get plastered without paying up front. This shows that although the world's quite literally gone to hell, there's still some actions such as this one, where man has faith in man to give a man some hope. As the man searches for his coins, he reveals a sigil on his chest that catches the eye of the Shovel Knight. He says it's a Belmont crest, quite perceptive of him, and no matter how much backroom drunk tries to claim otherwise, the room is onto him. With Shovel Knight's claims,
The Belmonts dealt in black magic. The Belmonts dealt with monsters.
Causing him to slip up and reveal his ties to the Belmonts even more, and that his drunkenness doesn't lead to drunken stupor. He's clear-headed enough, even though he obviously doesn't want to be, which could lead to his character having a past he wishes to forget, that could in fact be tied to the Belmonts.
The Belmonts fought monsters, son.
During more back and forth, you're a Belmont, no I'm not, yes you are, yada yada yada, we learn more backstory in regards to the Belmonts.
The Belmonts were excommunicated by the church. Banished. Disowned. Their lands taken.
We then reach the end of the bickering, where we get more insight into the backroom drunk when he says,
So I can find somewhere to and somewhere else to sleep.
It shows that he's truly not living for anything. His goals are the bare minimum: drink, pee, sleep, and before this ends, we may even find him eating to round it all out. He's surviving, sure, but he's truly not living. Who's to say he even wants to? After this, we round that joke from earlier off.
Oh, you can sleep right here.
You haven't got your shovel.
And the situation escalates. The man's nature seems to be more confrontation, brutish even, than the cunning that would have been represented if he snuck out when he had the chance. Shovel Knight questions him about what his name is, to where he says,
Jesus of Nazareth. Look, I'm carrying a short sword and a whip.
Causing his testicles to be tested and his will to be broken, where we finally learn his actual name and association with the Belmonts.
Trevor Belmont. How's Belmont? Last son of the Belmont family.
The last son of the Belmont family possibly hints at the pain he suffered, as well as his family, by losing them, if they are all truly dead, which in a world like this, it's anyone's guess. We then get our first real fight scene of the show. This scene shows many key details: the fighting prowess of Trevor Belmont, given he's drunk, hopeless, and going 4v1, a sample of the great choreography that we can hope to see throughout the show, as well as learning another aspect of Trevor's life or the Belmonts as a whole. It also shows how cursing will be handled, which is that there will be a lot, especially from
Trevor Belmont, and I've never lost a fight to man. Beast.
We don't get to see how the fight ends, but given that Trevor's the one that walks out, it says everything we need to know. After waking up next to a tree the next morning, Trevor sets out to the city that the Horde was headed to.
Bloody gracious.
Shoot, I said it wrong earlier. My bad, my bad. We see night creatures carrying a bloodied baby as a mother screams, staring at a bloody crib, and a man lies dead next to his wife as she screams bloody murder. We see a person sitting, shaking, holding onto a crucifix for dear life, and heads on spikes seemingly for sport as their organs are strewn about, connecting each of the spikes together. This may seem like an overabundance of gore for the sake of shock value, and it is, but it holds other purposes as well. It shows the hopelessness and destruction of the town that Trevor is about to walk into, setting up stakes as oh man, that was bad. As well as showing another layer to the threat of the night creatures. They don't gain anything from heads on spikes besides setting an example and causing fear, which pure creatures of death and destruction wouldn't bother themselves with. It lends itself to a more tactical nature than the brutality and randomness of the attacks would lead you to consider. It also opens the door to questioning why they would take the full body of a baby to begin with, which is a scary thought to linger in your mind. We also see that the city's gates are boarded off, with a blockade keeping everyone in and everyone out, not knowing whether the night creatures did this themselves to keep the humans contained like livestock, or if the humans did it in a desperate bid to have some sort of defense, is also a chilling and sad question to ponder. Trevor responds to this by saying,
Pretty sure they wouldn't do that just to deny me breakfast.
Which is more evidence that he's surviving and not living, as I brought up earlier. He only looks forward to the necessities which could be a product of what the world has come to. After casing the wall of the city, Trevor finds a tunnel, used to get rid of waste. The liquid substance surrounding it is bubbling, so it's either hot enough to boil, or that crab's literally toxic. Does stomach acid bubble like that? Don't search that up. Trevor jumps from solid to solid until he gets to the tunnel. Then after waste flies by, climbs inside and shimmies up to the city. Turns out he may be a brute, but he's capable of problem solving and getting around obstacles to get what he wants. He may not be hopeless after all. Once he reaches the city, he draws a weapon to kill a guard, showing that he has no problems taking a human life. Thankfully, he doesn't have to, as the guard is sleeping, prompting Trevor to walk by, showing that he doesn't kill if he doesn't have to. Editing Trevor here, as I'm putting the video together, I see the scene a little bit differently. It looks like he was actually going to hit the man with the hilt of his weapon, not the blade. And if that's the case, then he's more merciful than I originally gave him credit for. I suppose it's up to interpretation, but I wanted to correct my original thought to fit my newly split perception. Moving on. As he walks the city, we see what appears to be snow or frost littered about, as the wind causes him to pull his cloak closed, showing that whatever that was outside the walls, it wasn't boiling due to heat. Gross. We also see scratches on the wall, so although some night creatures can fly, there are some that either prefer to climb for tactical reasons such as stealth or during combat, or can't fly to begin with. Good to know either way. We see a man drinking on steps right across from a trail of blood, showing the desensitized or becoming desensitized inhabitants of the town. The Horde may have been headed this way earlier, but was it the first to hit the place? How many attacks could have happened since Trevor departed from his last location, and what does a person have to see in order to be okay with drinking across from another person's blood. It also brings up a question regarding the blood itself, given that the hole in the window's boards makes it seem as if a person was dragged through them and then taken somewhere else. Was it by the townsfolk trying to bury the bodies, or was it another example like the baby that we saw earlier? We see people living in tents, defenseless, dirty, broken, and barely having food to eat, showcased by the splitting of bread and the look of defeat right after. Hopeless people in an equally hopeless situation. It's honestly heartbreaking. Trevor then arrives at a bridge where bodies are being thrown over, amassing a pile where it seems like water used to run. Not only does this show the massive casualties that have been suffered, but it also dehumanizes the dead, like objects scattered in the way. No burial, no respect, no remorse. It also brings into question the town's water supply, given the fact that the water from under this bridge has all but dried up. The drought may take the citizens before the hunger ever does, which could also be the reason for the look of defeat from earlier. Trevor looks upon the mass of bodies, the remains of people, scowls, and spits onto them. This could be a representation of how little he truly cares anymore, not only about himself or others, but about the world itself. What are his values if he desecrates the dead like this? It's not appealing in a protagonist, but given the state of the world and people's reactions toward him earlier, it's entirely understandable. It also gives him something to grow from. Will he treat death like this in the future, or will he mature and grow to have more reverence toward them? I guess we'll see. Once we head deeper into the city, we arrive to what appears to be a town square, as Trevor climbs to sit on a wall. Although the scene lasts only a couple seconds, it shows again that he can be tactical, since he's actually surveying the area here. He found a good enough vantage point to see the state of the people in the square. They are recovering and cleaning up after the last attack, with people helping others that are throwing up due to the shock and pure disgust of it all, as others try to find a way to get organs down and clean up the blood. The city seemed hopeless outside of the courtyard here, but their efforts in cleaning and rebuilding show that they haven't given up just yet. Hopping off the wall, Trevor approaches a stall and asks what a gold coin would buy him, using this not only to get that food he climbed through crap to get, literally, but to also gather intelligence from the talkative people willing to give out that information. He learns that there's no real defensive effort, with everyone falling on different beliefs, superstitions that they hope will save them. Some are willing to sacrifice a group called the Speakers, which was of course an idea of the church. Surprise, surprise. The Speakers are carriers of what is considered old wisdom, the same wisdom that others are holding on to hope for, as there's a story of a legendary sleeping soldier under the city that they have faith will awaken and save them.
The new bishop hates the old wisdom. Dracula's monsters come at night, but the bishop's men come in the middle of the day.
The bishop will sort things out. If the others will just do as he says when he tells us to do it, then all will be in order.
These two lines portray the differing mentalities perfectly. After walking further, Trevor hears a confrontation in an alley. The bishop's men versus what I presumed to be a speaker. It was set up by the ideological and religious differences between the people that were, for lack of a better term, interviewed earlier. Trevor tries to convince himself to leave it be, mind his own business, but he doesn't leave. His actions speak louder than his words. My favorite part of this exchange is the
"Are you talking back to me?"
No, I'm merely talking to you.
But the most important part is the
"Speakers don't help. Speakers are tainted. You attract evil."
As well as
Will killing an old man make you less scared of the dark?
Those lines show the pure discrimination of these so-called priests, the violent impulses they are subject to, and the wit of the elder they are bullying. Trevor steps in with his whip, disarming the first priest, while dismembering the man's finger in the process. The priest starts cursing, which causes Trevor to call him out, giving him the option to leave while his tone escalates the situation. This fight scene shows his combat prowess, as well as his tactical intelligence regarding weapons and how they are used, knowing the other priest was or is a thief just by the weapon he draws. Then as the man charges him, it kinda looks like Trevor's just playing with his food, avoiding and reversing every strike till he takes the man's eye, sending them retreating back to the church. The speaker says,
The violence wasn't necessary, but it is appreciated.
Showing that he still wishes that we didn't resort to violence like wild animals, but that he's aware of the state of the world and that sometimes there are no other options.
Thank you for your kindness, and I think your restraint.
This shows that he's able to see the good that came out of a bad situation, and knows that if Trevor wanted to kill them, he would have. A wise old man indeed. Trevor and the Elder head back to the speaker's lodging, where the Elder says there are 12 speakers in the area, but one has went missing. Once they enter the building, he explains the situation with the priests, causing anger from another member of the group that thinks violence should never be resorted to.
The younger people believe that words can speak louder than actions.
This again shows that the Elder's experience with the world is more realistic and that he's possibly sheltering the rest by going out and experiencing the darkness of humanity himself. It also contrasts well with what Trevor said earlier, when his actions were different than what he said, as he acted on what he truly believed. The speakers, however, believe the tongue is more powerful than the sword, that they can solve problems verbally instead of physically. Trevor explains that his family has always had a good standing with the speakers, and we learn that they preserve information with memory and refuse to write that history down.
We are quite protective of our ways. History is a living thing. Paper is dead.
Regardless of the more, for lack of a better term, progressive outlook in terms of how he practices their beliefs, he stands by not writing down their knowledge, even though it risks the knowledge by not doing so. If all the speakers die, then all they know go with them. It's honestly a sad thought. It's also a blessing and a curse in terms of security. Some may spare the speakers for the knowledge they possess, kinda like an insurance policy. Others may want them dead for the same reason. Knowledge is power, and power is dangerous. After this, what I speculated earlier is confirmed. The church is the ones that blame the speakers, using them as a scapegoat to cover up how they foolishly killed Dracula's wife and caused the entire war to begin with. If you hear that cricket in the background, my apologies for that. We learn why, regardless of the danger posed by the town, the speakers still refuse to leave. Firstly, it's because there is no structure here, not anymore. No defenses, no doctors. People need help with nobody to help them, so the speakers want to be able to do that. Lastly, the speaker that went missing went to investigate the sleeping soldier under the city. That speaker that went was the grandchild of the Elder, and he refuses to leave without them, or well, without their body if need be. So Trevor volunteers to go save the person in exchange for the speakers to leave and save themselves. We learn a bit about Trevor here. He's hurt by the church for how they treated his family, and has a similar perspective to Dracula.
For evil bastards to win power, all ordinary people have to do is stand aside and keep quiet. There's always a choice.
As he leaves, the speaker says one of my favorite lines.
It is not dying that frightens us. It's living without ever having done our best.
The impact these words may have on Trevor is questionable to say the least, but the impact it has on me, as well as other members of the audience, is undeniable. The next episode begins with Trevor approaching a tomb. It's in a cold, snow-covered area with wind howling. One thing that's been consistent since Dracula's war is that the cold is a bad omen, a foreboding warning foreshadowing either what's to come or the severity of what already happened. After opening the doors and going inside, he finds the secret entrance quicker than the average COD mainer would and slides down to a new location. After examining the first torch he sees, he says that the oil is fresh and gives it a light. This indicates that someone recently was there and that he's on the right track. It also sets up a way for him to have better visibility, probably to set up a time when he loses it for tension. In this old stone tomb, he finds a metal pipe, giving it a tap. There's more to this tomb than meets the eye, probably hinting at something hidden somewhere that requires a more technological approach than just stone. Science being related to Dracula in the first episode and technology being seen as satanic probably hints at something vampiric. Hearing a noise in the distance, he draws his blade and proceeds down a flight of stairs. Once he reaches the floor though, it gives out, sending him crashing through a couple layers and falling into a new section of the catacombs. He stands up and sees the plate is surrounded by lights that illuminate one by one. The lights reveal the presence of statues that look like fallen warriors. Is it more than just a coincidence? Given Dracula's creatures can be anything at this point, since we don't know the limits, it wouldn't be a surprise if there's a Gorgon down here and this is a trap. Maybe one of those statues is the speaker we're looking for. The middle one has what looks like a similar garb to the ones that we've already spoken to. Trevor approaches the statue, states that it is in fact a speaker, as he's interrupted by roaring music and frightening stomping coming from what sounds like a giant beast. It is in fact a Cyclops with a laser eye. A fight breaks out. Trevor throws his blade where its heart would be, but the creature doesn't fall, flinch, or falter. I'm unaware if it doesn't actually have a heart or if it just wasn't a deep enough wound to pierce it. Using his whip though, he pulls the blade out, revealing blood that shows that it has a heart somewhere, as he then throws the blade into its head, causing it to die and ending the fight. The fight showcased Trevor's adaptability, how quickly he switched up weak points the moment he realized one wouldn't work. It takes a tactical mind under pressure to make decisions on the fly like that one. He also had the skills to back it up, adding to the mystery of what is he really capable of. The speaker statue starts to fall, so Trevor catches it as it turns back into a human, a girl. The grandchild was a granddaughter all along. Trevor explains that he came after her, so the speakers will leave the city and that they believe she is dead. To set their mind at rest, she agrees to head back with Trevor to the lodging, but states that she hasn't given up on the tale that brought her here to begin with. This shows that she's a very stubborn yet very determined person that holds steadfast in her beliefs in the old wisdom. She's also courageous in the face of danger, as well as able to adapt to it, given she was practically dead a few moments ago, and yet wants to put herself in that danger yet again, just for a little hope in a story that's nothing more than just a rumor. She also says her name is Cypher, but gets interrupted before she can say more by Trevor. We then get this really good scene as the duo arrive back at base, and well, just watch it if copyright allows. The way that light was used perfectly, causing the Elder to literally light up the moment that Cypher re-enters his life. The look of surprise on everyone's face as the body they were expecting walks itself into the room. The way that Trevor stands seemingly emotionless, but once is thanked, responds in kind. The whole scene is beautifully shot to radiate the emotions felt, and it's so dang wholesome. She then apologizes for not finding the sleeper, and Trevor explains the possibility of it being a trap for speakers and others that heard the legend, saying that the inner amalgamations were reminiscent of how the Belmonts before him described Dracula's castle. After making sure they're leaving tonight, he leaves to go find some beer, to which Cypher says,
I could pee in a bucket and tell him it's beer. He's rude.
Showing she's a bit irritated with his attitude, maybe opening the door for some development if they have any more scenes together after this one. As he walks away, he gets surprised by a knife to the neck as the priests from the church surround him, led by the bruiser from before. Trevor tries to talk his way out of it, but is told that the terms of his excommunication doesn't mean he isn't allowed in the church when called upon, and he has been summoned. Once they arrive at the church, we enter it to see the bishop that murdered Dracula's wife. Guessing by his company and the scapegoating of the speakers, I was a bit kind to assume earlier that he could have reached some semblance of redemption. The bishop believes that the hordes came not because of Laurie's murder, but because people weren't religious enough, including the archbishop himself. He seems to not understand the gravity of what he did, justifying his actions under the excuse of doing God's will. He has learned absolutely nothing, telling Trevor he must leave before sundown or be killed alongside the speakers. We get to hear Trevor try to defend his family yet again.
My family committed no crime. You people simply decided we were wrong to defend this land against the supernatural.
Leading to the insanity of the bishop to fully reveal itself as quick as a snap, as he uses God's name to be a dictator. After he finishes lashing out, he regains his composure and sweetens the deal, offering to discuss the matter of Trevor's excommunication further if he follows his orders here, since once he makes this God's very own city, he will be the church. Again, showing that the bishop, pardon the pun, doesn't practice what he preaches. The church in and of itself isn't a city, a building, not a place, but an idea. A group of Christians congregating together is a church with or without walls surrounding them. A single man with ill intentions and a misguided mind for power cannot be a church. Instead, he's nothing more than the very thing he wants to burn out: evil. Not caring about the ravings of a madman nor the false promises he makes, Trevor makes his way back to the speakers and warns them of their impending demise. He warns them to leave, begs them to, because even if they survive tonight, they will still be blamed once the night creatures hit the town, and it'll repeat the next day. The elder says that they can't leave during the town's time of need, especially when it's lies that are trying to run them out. He gives a good speech and even ties it into lore, dealing with the Belmont's name as well, as the heart of the Belmont before him.
What have the church said about the Belmonts? That you have been corrupted by dealings with the supernatural? That you mock God? That you are a threat to the common good, and that evil follows wherever you go? And what did you do in the face of that? So what are you running to? Did you have a destination in mind? I am calling you defeated, Trevor Belmont. You fought your battle, and you decided you lost.
This is a hard line, a pill for Trevor to swallow. The man who has went from drink to drink, fight to fight, down, rude, angry, and broken. A man that truly seems as if he's given up and is aimlessly living without a goal greater than survival. As the speakers continue to do what they are known for, Trevor's eyes are bloodshot, hidden in the darkness, looking towards the light, signifying that every harsh truth has a tinge of hope alongside it, and he sees it as well. At the end of their speech, Trevor stands, blocking the light from the door as he says,
"You're leaving. Right now."
This scene is important because he is walking through the light and not out of it. He seems menacing and he's demanding, but the change of perspective may very well show of the change in him that we're about to see. He's acting selflessly here as well as selfishly. He wants the speakers to live above all else, but wants it to be in the way that he feels is right, not in the way that they would. Their speech, his willingness to hear them out, and even through his anger discuss the topic, shows that he's not just hearing, interrupting, and ignoring, but that he's actually listening, considering, and understanding. I have no doubt in my mind that development will come from this. He already stated his family had close relations with the speakers, so he wouldn't denounce their right to harbor their beliefs. And him taking the time to make deals and debate show that as he walks towards them in a way that seems forceful, that he won't truly force them to leave. Because if he would have been willing to do that, he would have done it already. The night has arrived, the creatures head towards the village as a mob of men heads towards the speakers. Pitchforks raised, torches waving, ready to take them by force and end their lives. As men break open the doors, they see Trevor alone inside and question him on the whereabouts of the speakers, giving us this scene.
"I've put them somewhere safe.
I swear it just moved."
Comedy gold. A boneheaded priest slaps Trevor, silences him, insults him. In this scene, the priest's actions reflect ones we've seen with Trevor, whenever he interrupted Cypher after rescuing her and downplayed what she believed was important. How he spat on the dead, how he argued against the beliefs of the speakers regardless of how much it went against their values, trying to convince them to abandon them. You get the idea. Trevor, however, is the opposite, tanking the hits, standing firm in his beliefs, his values, his name, his honor, just as the speakers did against him.
So you're going to die for nothing, for people you don't know?
I don't know any of you, but that doesn't matter, does it? My family, the family you demonized and excommunicated, has fought and died through generations for this country. We do this thing for Wallachia and her people. We don't have to know you all. We do it anyway.
He drops his coat here, the raggedy, dirty, tore-old thing that reflects the hopeless man he was, revealing the Belmont's crest, a bright, symbolic, hopeful change representing who he is becoming.
I'm Trevor Belmont, of the House of Belmont, and dying has never frightened me.
If you remember from earlier, this speech has many parts that were influenced by the Elder, especially the line where he said,
"It is not dying that frightens us. It's living without ever having done our best."
Showing that although the impact it had on Trevor was questionable at the time, he was always listening and learning and changing into the man he is now. It wasn't a sudden change. This is who he was. It's just never who he felt compelled to truly be. They're actually developing his character and not changing him on a whim. Once the exchange of words has concluded, an exchange of weapons begins, as the priests draw on Trevor. Using kunai, he disarms them, confuses them long enough to tackle one through the doorway and seal it off behind them. Taking his whip out, he disarms a man of his hatchet and uses it to cut across, sending it falling to the ground, spreading the enemies thin by causing them to run in a panic. It could also symbolize the fall of the church, how it's being used to crush those that follow them under the weight of false prophets, as well as show how the church doesn't truly care about the ones that are following it, and without the church's direction, everyone would scatter like flies. As he runs away, Trevor snatches a torch from a member of the mob, using it to catch a path behind him on fire to contain his pursuers as well as cover his flank. Then suddenly arrows flit by his head, causing him to roll into cover. Two spearmen approach that cover from the archer's direction as one-eyed Jack from earlier drops in with the flank, surrounding our hero where he stands. Drawing his blade, he engages Jack, blocking his strikes while avoiding arrows till the opportunity arises to do both, causing Jack to lose both his eyes and his life. The pikemen approach, getting quickly dispatched, as Trevor hurls their spear at the archer in the back, causing his arrow to hit the one in front of them for a double kill. After he exits the alley, he sees the mob, causing him to run straight into the next episode. We begin with the bishop in his church awaiting good news as someone enters, masked by the darkness, as the bishop asks,
"Who's that? Are the speakers dead?"
The night creatures answer with a no, saying that God isn't in that building, and explaining how the bishop hasn't followed God himself.
"Your God's love is not unconditional."
One thing to note here is that they say your God and not God. Within the Bible, demons feared God. They understood his power and although challenged it, submitted to it as well. In Mark 1 verse 27, reading out of the New International Version, it says, "The people were also amazed that they asked each other, 'What is this?' A new teaching and with authority. He even gives orders to impure spirits and they obey him." The part that we're focusing on is the latter half of the verse. He even gives orders to impure spirits and they obey him. Jesus also, as God's eternal Son, has power over the demons since they know his power. Matthew 8:28 through 31, when he arrived at the other side in the region of the two demon-possessed men coming from the tombs, they met him. They were so violent that no one could pass that way. "What do you want with us, Son of God?" they shouted. "Have you come here to torture us before the appointed time?" Some distance from them a large herd of pigs was feeding. The demons begged Jesus, "If you drive us out, send us into the herd of pigs." They needed Jesus' permission. They pleaded with him because he had that power. Even what is known as a number between 3,000 and 6,000 Roman soldiers, which would be a legion, of demons submitted and pleaded to the Son of God. Mark 5, verse 6 through 13 is the story of Legion. I'll summarize this one. Jesus met with a demon-possessed man. The demon said, "We are Legion, for we are many," and begged to be cast into pigs, running them into the water to drown. All of this is example of the power that Jesus has, but throughout the Bible we hear that true believers have that power as well, as long as they have the faith that they can do it. Matthew 17 verse 20 states that you have to have faith, and if you have little faith, then you won't be able to drive them out. Whereas Mark 16 verse 7 says that believers can cast out demons. In order to counter that, 2 Corinthians 4:4 states that the God, lowercase g, of this world, which would be Satan, blinds the minds of unbelievers unbelievers so they don't see the truth of the gospel. 2 Corinthians 11:13 through 15 states, "For such are false apostles, deceitful workers, transforming themselves into the apostles of Christ. And no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. Therefore it is no great thing if his ministers also be transformed as the ministers of righteousness, whose end shall be according to their works." Which is exactly what the priest does and has done, claiming to be doing actions for the glory of God, although his actions are anything but Christ-like. For these demons to exist, God has to exist as well, and they constantly seek to undermine that fact, such as we see here. Also, God's love is in fact unconditional, but not his mercy, since there are conditions needed to be required in order to make it into heaven. Whether or not you follow said conditions, believe in him, follow commandments, repent of sins, he loves you regardless. That doesn't mean his mercy will extend to allowing you into heaven though. Demons would twist that to seem like conditional love, so I can see this as realistic. Just wanted to clarify that it isn't reality. The leader of the pack can talk, and I really like the VA's performance here, especially this part.
Lies in your house of God?
Even the night creatures are calling the man out. The leader explains that they love him and wouldn't be here without him before ending his life with one kiss of death. We then cut to Trevor running from the mob when he gets surrounded and all hope seems to be lost. Suddenly a wall of fire forms around him, a flaming circle allowing him to approach his savior, Sypha. He smiles while speaking to her, a softer expression than he's given her yet, showing a mutual respect at the very least. I love her expression in this scene, as well as the words in which she says,
"I am a speaker and a scholar of magic. I serve no demon and I do no evil."
She's strong-willed in who she is, just like Trevor, but she arguably looks cooler doing it.
"I didn't ask you to fight for me. I fight for myself."
They're more similar than they want to admit. She just still has hope, while life has beat that same hope right out of him. Trevor then calls out the brute from earlier. He yells about the misdeeds of the priest and the bishop, addressing the priest who threatened the elder, but speaking to the mob, causing them to rise up and make a decision of their own volition to end a man's life. The town's redemption finally begins. Then the night creatures arrive, so Trevor shows his tactical prowess by creating a strategy. He puts 2 rows of pikemen out, 6 in front and 6 behind, has a priest go to the nearest well and make buckets of holy water, has the swordsmen cover their blades in salt, and Cypher to create walls of ice to contain the creatures so they can't be flanked and can handle them easily. The strategy works, allowing them to mow through the enemies. Even though they have wings to fly away, they just either can't use them in confined space or conveniently choose not to. I'm not too sure on which. It could be like a plane. They need a runway or at least a running start. The leader then charges Trevor and Cypher, causing him to be enveloped by ice, and then after saying this threat, this proves the existence of God, one God, by hell not being able to exist without him. It also sets up the future, teases the possibility of many more enemies with many different designs and abilities. He then has his head split open and his body exploded by the power of Trevor's demon killing, vampire slaying, whip of awesomeness. Suddenly the ground falls from beneath them, sending Trevor and Cypher into the depths, where they show they have good chemistry together as they react by saving one another as if it is second nature. This could be foreshadowing them working together in the future, or actually joining together like a party. I guess we'll find out. Once they make it to a mechanical structure though, they do their best to safely make it across, but fail, causing it to collapse and them to fall further than anyone has the entire show so far. This scene does make physics a bit janky here, by asking the question of, is there fall damage for the protagonists, and where is the line drawn? I hope we figure it out quickly because this is harming both stakes and tension due to the amount of times Trevor's been in this situation. The two arrive to a chamber and see a sleeping warrior awaken, straight out of a coffin. The dude's a vampire, man, it couldn't be more obvious. The duo explained to him that Dracula's attacked the land with hordes of monsters, causing the vampire to ask if Trevor believes he's a savior, to which he responds that he doesn't.
So, I have to ask myself, have we come down here to wake up the man who'll kill Dracula, or did we come here to wake Dracula?
This is a good question, worded as if it's not asking the man before them, but sarcastically asking himself instead. It's a good way to gauge the person before you by how they respond to this, setting them up, hoping they reveal something all on their own. The mystery man points out the importance of what he said.
You call me Dracula.
Both a statement and a question, leaving it up to question on which way he means it and what way he says it. It leaves a threatening aura of uncertainty that gets undermined by Trevor saying,
I'll call you anything you like if you're gonna show me your teeth.
This isn't just a quick-witted remark, however. Instead, it's Trevor shifting the playing field back and regaining the position of power in the exchange.
She called you Belmont. House of Belmont?
The stranger is trying to keep the upper hand and catch him off guard. Normally, this is when the other party would say, Hey, I'm asking the questions here. But Trevor instead says,
Trevor Belmont, last son of the House of Belmont.
There's a power dynamic in the room, you can feel it with every word, set up well by how strong Trevor is portrayed to be, as well as the strength of the Belmont name itself. Then this exchange happens.
The Belmonts fought creatures of the night, did they not? For generations.
Say what you mean.
The Belmonts killed vampires.
Until the good people decided they didn't want us around.
And now Dracula is carrying out an execution order on the human race.
You can hear the emotions rise in Trevor's voice, as the other man stays steady, which isn't good. Most discussions fall apart whenever one side gets emotional, and the side that remains the calmest is the one to be feared the most. After a few lines, the most important question is raised, one that brings all of Trevor's experiences and development due to them to a final point. Did he truly learn and...
Do you care, Belmont?
The answer to this question has been set up in every interaction since the beginning. From every talk with the speakers, with his speech to the priests, to him saving Cypher, and even that small smile he showed her earlier, all have brought us to this moment. The stranger then asks if he thinks he can make the difference that he wants to, leading to Trevor taking that as a threat, a challenge, a hint that this is the moment that he needs to make it. So Trevor tells him that he thinks he'll have to kill him. He then says that the place they're in isn't 100 years old, and that he hasn't been there for that long, causing the revelation that the stranger's been there for 1 whole year, ever since the night of Dracula's promise. So is he the interrupter from earlier? Did Dracula lock him down here? Is that scar from Dracula? So many questions, but right now, he and Trevor must fight. He's trying to get a gauge for who Trevor is, how well he fights, but for what reason. That is unclear. It's a good guess to assume that it's due to his quarrel with Dracula from earlier, where he stood up for the humans, but it's hard to be sure. The two begin the fight, with Vamps fighting in a way reminiscent of fencing, or Form 2 Makashi. Trevor hints him a few times, but it feels like he's letting him do it, as a teacher would do. This moment here, when Trevor's whip wraps around his sword, he takes a moment to study how Trevor would react to it, pausing before acting. In a true fight to the death, he would have used that as an advantage, reacted quickly, and not hesitated. This moment here, when blades are clashed, Trevor knees him in the nuts, where he then pauses the fight yet again to give a one-liner instead of taking the initiative. The last time this is demonstrated is after he breaks Trevor's weapon, and while he is stunned, choosing to punch him instead, disarming himself right after and getting close to give another line, which goes against his characterization at the beginning of the encounter. This fight also shows Trevor being formidable, being able to match the speed to block the attacks as Vamp sped up, catching his sword with his whip, avoiding attacks that would have connected on your average person, and then his final move at the end, stabbing Vamps as his guard is down.
But I don't care. Killing you was the point. Living through it was just a luxury.
That line causes Vamps to chuckle, even in this moment when he should be afraid. It adds validity to my theory that it's all just a test and that he wasn't using his full power. Cypher interrupts by threatening his life, due to Trevor saving hers, and them sharing a common goal. Vamp says his name is Adrian Tempest, also known as Alucard. He's been resting down here, healing down here for a year from the wounds given to him by his father, Dracula. We learn that the entirety of the Sleeping Soldier's story actually states that the soldier will be met by a hunter and a scholar, which would be Trevor and Sypha, which the speakers already knew, and that's why the Elder pushed so hard for Trevor to stay. This opens the door to the questions of, if the speakers only passed their knowledge verbally, then how could one have prophesied this story of the future? Is there a time traveler they met along the way, or a magic we just haven't seen yet? Could it be the key to reverse all this? I truly hope that we can find out. Alucard says that he will stop Dracula, and he needs their help. When questioned of why, he says,
"Because it is what my mother would have wanted."
This line, as well as the next that I'll also show you, relate him with Trevor because they are both trying to live up to what they believe that their family would have wanted. Trevor is now going to be a vampire hunter and actually stand for the things that his family would have stood for, as is represented whenever he stood up for their honor earlier, and Alucard is going to stand up for the humans, such as his human mother would have wanted, which was demonstrated whenever she decided to yell,
Don't hurt them! They don't understand! Be better than them! Please!
While she was dying, her final wishes was literally for Dracula to spare the humans, and now it is up to the son to make up for the sins of the father. This is also something that relates to the Bible in some capacity as well, given the fact that in Deuteronomy 24:16 it states that, "Fathers shall not be put to death because of their children, nor shall children be put to death because of their fathers, for they die for their own sins." Yes, there are generational consequences of our sins and our actions that affect those close to us. Whether or not you believe in sin, then change the word to action and the statement is the same. Although we are not necessarily responsible for the sins or actions of our fathers or our children, we must ensure that we don't influence bad behavior or influence sin, and that we are not influenced by sin and bad behavior. We have to learn from our mistakes, we have to learn from their mistakes, and we have to ensure that they learn from our mistakes as well. In this situation, Alucard is in fact learning from the sin of his father. He's learning from his father's mistakes, and he is going out of his way to not only rectify those mistakes and completely make up for them, but to ensure that he is not following in the same path as his father would. Instead, he is recognizing the good works of his mother, and he is deciding that he wants to learn from the good that she did, as well as the mistakes of his father, in order to do what he believes that she would. He is honoring his mother and his father by his actions. If he goes out and he ends his father's life, ends his father's reign of terror, he is honoring not only his mother's wishes, but his father's wishes as well. At the end of the day, Dracula truly wants to do what he believes is right for his wife. He just has a twisted, grief-stricken perception of what that truly is. Dracula stated at the beginning of the episode that he was doing what he was doing in honor of his wife, that everything he is doing is for her. Even the good deed that he did at the beginning, he gave her the credit for. He believes what he's doing is right, which may also be why he didn't kill his son, because he had enough awareness to know that his wife wouldn't have wanted that. It's doing a great job reflecting the fact that although our parents and our kids do things, we have to look beyond that. We have to look at who they are and the deep-rooted aspect of their actions. And right here, Alucard is doing both. But he is saying that he is a slave to what his parents would want. He's giving them the credit, just as Dracula did for his wife at the beginning, instead of acknowledging the fact that redemption is a choice. Learning from your mistakes is a choice. Going out of your way and trying to do better is a choice. You choose what you want your life to be. You may be in a really bad situation, but whether or not you see the roses or the thorns, whether or not you see the puddles after the rain or the sunshine after it comes back, is entirely up to perspective. Whether or not you decide to go to work whenever you don't feel like it is entirely up to you. So hopefully, as he goes out of his way to honor his father and his mother in the one way that he knows how, goes out of his way to do good, such as his mother would have wanted, he is able to learn who he truly is along the way, able to figure out what it is about him that makes him into who he wants to be. Because making that choice shows his character. It is reflective of who he is and the mindset that he has. And the wording he uses next exemplifies that.
And we are all, in the end, slaves to our family's wishes.
This is a statement that all three can relate to in some regards. Sypha is breaking out of the mode and going and traveling away from the speakers. Instead of going to place doing humanitarian stuff and spreading knowledge, she's going to hunt down Dracula with 2 other people, which is not what the rest of the speakers are going to do. She is breaking out of that mode, breaking out of that shell, and pursuing what she believes a new calling for her life would be based upon an old story. Trevor is going out of his way to do what his family would have wanted him to do. He has stood up for his family's origins, for who they truly are, time and time again in this episode alone, and he needs to now break free of that. Sure, he can continue to be a Belmont, he can continue to be a vampire hunter, he can continue to be in that mode, but he can also find something else to fight for, something else to live for, and something else to die for. And hopefully that gives him the get up and go attitude he needs to continue on his journey and to actually find some real and solid happiness. And then we've already talked about how Alucard relates to it. This shows the opposite perspective of his father. Dracula justified the deaths of all these people as revenge for his wife. He's doing it for his wife, yada yada yada. Whereas his son is following his mother's true wishes and truly doing what she would want, saving the lives of the innocent. Lisa was a doctor for that very reason, and now Alucard needs to put his own father out of his misery before he causes more pain that can never be undone, before he becomes the very thing his wife would have fought against. The 3 agree to team up, with the mutual goal of unaliving Dracula, saving the lives of many in the process, and walking into the end of the episode. Now it's time for the question you've all been waiting for. Did Castlevania start well? Yes. Yes, it did. It begins with showing Trevor as some hopeless, drunken brute of a man, and ends with him having a renewed purpose, with him showing his strategic prowess, with him finding people to live for, a reason to fight for, a team, so he's no longer traveling alone and caring little about anyone besides himself. He's doing more than just surviving now. He's finally living. Dracula is shown to be a grieving man who actually had the potential and the ability to be better than he is now. He is backsliding, he is grief-stricken, and it is affecting how he operates. He's not just a villain hell-bent on killing everyone in the world, see what I did there, due to the fact that he just wants everyone dead. He is tired of what he sees as a plague on other vampires, on good people, and that is the fact that most of them are bad. He encounters a good human, he falls in love with this human, and they get taken from him by humans foolishly following lies in order to further their own power and ego. He can be seen as justified in his beliefs that all humans are bad, given the fact that his encounters with them, people feared him, people looked down on him, people even denied his very existence. It's hard for me to blame a man when he wants those people dead. Cypher went from someone that was seen as a damsel in distress at first, to a very powerful seeming speaker magician that we know we can rely on and will need to rely on us. The chemistry that she has with Trevor is undeniable so far, and it really sets a foundation for us to be able to see them grow together. Alucard joining the fold at the end actually felt like it was something that we were working up towards instead of something that just happened. The sleeping soldier, being a local legend, did a good job setting some foundation of what we think it could be, and depending on your thoughts, probably subverted expectations as well. Whenever Alucard first got attacked by Dracula, we never knew who he was, so figuring out the identity of that person and now knowing that they are a good guy on our side was a pretty good revelation. The night creatures, the demon hordes, we've seen how strong they are, how powerful they are, and how they are willing to do anything and murder anyone. Man, women, child, infant, doesn't matter to them. We've also seen that they're capable of thinking, capable of thought, capable of having leaders, and that does a good job setting up the possibilities of the enemies that we'll encounter in the future. We've met the speakers. We now know that there are tribes of people with certain beliefs different from that of the church, and the church has now been made out to be not very good, but hopefully that's something that gets rectified and we do find some people of the church that aren't too bad, such as the priest that went to the well to make the holy water during the final confrontation with the night creatures. There are a lot of stakes that have been set up that we now have reason to want to see paid off, and it does a very good job setting them up. Every episode does a good job lending a hand with the ones that come next in order to make the narrative feel far more cohesive than a lot of shows do when they first begin. It feels like it had a grand foundation and a lot of years to build it, even though it has just begun. And yes, I know it is based on games and other media in the Castlevania universe, but it's its own thing first and foremost, borrowing the name and the characters but telling a story all of its own, even if there are similar plot points here or there. So yeah, I think it starts well and I really enjoy talking about it. If you enjoyed watching it, then let me know in the comments below, and I'll do Season 2, Season 3, Season 4, maybe even cover Nocturne. But until then, thank you so much for making it this far. For more news, reviews, and whatever we choose, stay tuned to Nerdsfeed. Have a great day. Thank you. While I've been editing this recording, I noticed that I've been saying Cypher and Cypher interchangeably. Yeah, dog, that's my bad. My brain just be auto-correcting the Cypher for some reason when it is actually Cypher. That is the correct name. Just wanted to put that out there at the end so you know, because I jacked it up so many times I don't feel like going back and re-recording. It's gonna be a lot of work to edit this the way it is. Just wanted to make it known that I'm aware of my mistake and make you aware of it as well. Yeah, totally my bad there. For more news, reviews, and whatever we choose on all things nerd, subscribe, and above all else, have a great day. Thank you.